coaching in Butler, there isn't much I haven't coached. And I guess that's one good thing about not having played and not worrying about whether you know anything or not. You know, as I said, we were on a mission, so you just do it. And I learned that, believe it or not, when I first started coaching in Virginia. When I got out of college, I taught in a school in Suffolk, Virginia, which is about 25 miles from Virginia Beach, big peanut country. Planters Peanuts is there, whatever. And when I got the job, they told me that I would be coaching basketball and I would be coaching tennis. And I said, well, I grew up in Belleville, right outside of Newark, so tennis was not part of my interest. You know, roller skating maybe, but not tennis. And I said, I don't really know anything about tennis. I mean, I played for fun when I was in college. You know, there were courts there, so let's go play tennis. And they said, well, you don't really need to know anything. I said, why? They said, well, most of our programs run through our recreation department, and our kids are state champions. So the first tennis team I coached was a state championship team, and I knew nothing. Nothing. I mean, I've run around and played, but as far as coaching is concerned. So you talk about somebody having a lot of guts or brass, you know, to say, okay, all right, I'll do it. Well, I did, and they were. My first team I had in the high school ranks, interscholastic, I had the 14 and under, 16 and under, and 18 and under state champion on my team. So my input was rather limited, to say the least. And they were great kids. They were great kids. And what happened was I learned from them. I learned to play. I was a pretty good tennis player. By the time I left, I was there 2 years, and by the time I left, I was a pretty good tennis player because they taught me. And I was playing, you know how they always tell you, if you want to get better, play up. Well, I was definitely playing up, but I got to be a pretty good tennis player. So that was really my first coaching experience. And then I coached basketball down there, and of course that was the old 6-player basketball where you could only play half court. And it was the dumbest game on the face of the earth. In fact, when I came back to Butler, and we actually started, the first year I coached basketball in Butler was 6-player. They had the roving player. They let, you know, one kid could run the length of the floor. But, and I was always opposed to that. I said, I don't understand it. I coached field hockey in the fall. Now, in field hockey at that time, there were no timeouts. They played international rules. There were no timeouts. You played on a football field, 100 by 50, whatever field, and you ran for like 30 minutes, whatever it was. I think it was half an hour. It was a half. Anyway, you ran up and down a 100-yard field with no timeouts. And then in the wintertime, you go into a gym, 80-something by 50-something, and they said it was too strenuous, that you couldn't run the length of the floor. Now, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, that you can't run 80 feet, but you can run 100 yards. But it was more ladylike, I guess, to play 6-player. So I coached 6-player, and in fact, the year before we started in Butler, in the 60s, I coached St. Anthony's, CYO. I'm not Catholic, but that didn't matter. It was a coaching job, and kids played, for, you know, kids I knew from school. So they asked me if I would coach, and I did. And we won the diocesan championship. We went undefeated. Once again, I was lucky. I had good kids. A little girl from Bloomingdale named Jeannie Marquette who could run faster than anybody on the face of the earth, and she was the rover. And Geraldine Crean, Jerry's daughter, Geraldine, and Donna Ricker, and I can't. It was back in the 60s, but we won the diocesan championship, and we went undefeated playing 6-player. So I could coach 6-player. I had done it before. But the second year I was coaching, thank God, we went to 5-player. The state association had established the state championship by that time, in 1972, 71, 72. And it was 5-player. Now here we were. We're playing 6-player all season. And we qualified for the state tournament in 1972. And now we're playing 5-player. we're going into a tournament and playing a sport we hadn't played. That's not easy. It's you got to have offenses, defenses. It was totally different. In fact, Wendy Larry on that 72 team, she played defense. She didn't play offense. She never shot the ball. She only played defense. The only time she got to shoot the ball was a foul shot. Then her senior year, we went to 5-player. And then she got to shoot the ball, and she scored 411 points. Now, that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you think in 1 year, 411 points in the early days, she would have been a 1,000-point scorer without a doubt. So we finally went to 5-player, and of course that's the year we went 21-2 and won the section finals. But it's ridiculous the attitudes towards things, and you try to be logical about it, like comparing field hockey to basketball. Why is one more strenuous than the other? And people they don't want to hear it, So when I came to Butler and we started playing, I had some background in tennis, but tennis was not going to be here, and I had background in basketball a little bit. But when I got here and I did field hockey. I was first field hockey coach. In fact, there's only been 2, 3, 4 coaches. There was me and then Liz Benny, like forever. And I gave up field hockey to her because she played and she was better at it. She was a better coach than I was in field hockey. And that's only fair. Although it's difficult to give up anything, but it was only fair. And she did a much better job than I did. But we had fun. And I did field hockey. And basketball, I was not the first basketball coach. I was the second basketball coach because at that time I was coaching gymnastics, which was a winter sport. And I know a lot of people don't realize that I coach gymnastics either. And they probably don't even equate that to me because I couldn't do a cartwheel if my life depended on it, even when I was a kid. But sometimes that makes you a better coach. But I had Ralph Raytheon and I had Paul Bohr. Paul Bohr was outstanding. And I learned so much from him. And sometimes when you can't do that stuff, you can break it down better and teach it better. A good athlete or a great athlete is not always a good coach because it comes natural to them and it's easy and they can't explain it to anybody else. But if you have to learn it step by step and the mechanics of it, then it's much easier for you to teach it. And I enjoyed gymnastics a lot, and we were successful. We had an undefeated season 1 year. We had Rita Grasso was a state champion in uneven bars, and so we had a lot of success. And what we were able to do is we got equipment that nobody else had because we were good. And we had the best equipment in the area. Now, if I look back at the equipment we had then, with what they have now, it's ancient. You would think you were in an old gym with the medicine balls and the Indian clubs and whatever when I look at the equipment. But, we had a Florex mat, which nobody had, not with a springboard like they used to have, like they have now, but we had a Florex mat. We had the latest at that time. And NJSIA, Flo Paragallo, who was assistant executive director down there, asked me if we would host the state championships, and I foolishly said yes. And it wasn't to be a big problem because there weren't that many teams. Well, as it turned out, we had a monumental number of kids who were eligible to compete. And it was supposed to be, the meet was supposed to end like 4 o'clock in the afternoon. We were supposed to have warm-ups at 9, and you had to have everybody had to get a chance on whatever they were competing, and whatever. And we had so many kids, and I had to do the competition order. Another thing I learned, and some kids are in 4 events, some are in 3, 2, and 1, and you have to set up a competition order so that they're not going here. I stayed up all night doing that. It was one of the worst things I ever had to do in my life. It was incredible. I did the competition order. We set it up. I had to change it. I had to have them come in at 7 o'clock. We had to start warm-ups at 7 o'clock, and we didn't end till 7 o'clock that night. by the time the meet was over. It was one of the longest days of my life. And the officials were not happy because I had to hear it from them. At that time, they got paid $25 to do the meet. And they were there from like 8 in the morning to like 7:30 at night for $25. And there wasn't even time. We had to work to get time for them to leave and just go to the bathroom, So things changed after that. And fortunately, we didn't have to do it again. It went somewhere else after that. But we did a good job, and we ran the state championship, and everything went well, and in spite of ourselves. So, Butler is on the map as far as girls gymnastics is concerned as well. Then I got involved. Carol Thorne, who was the coach who was coaching basketball at that time, she left Butler. So I moved over into basketball and stayed until I retired from basketball, or resigned from basketball in 1988. So I was, there for a fair amount of time. But that was probably more in my realm, although I did love gymnastics and I did like doing it. But I would say I probably got more injuries coaching gymnastics than I did anything else, because spotting and catching bodies, and it scared me more than anything I had ever done before too, because bodies are flying through the air. What if you don't catch them properly? What if you don't? And it was incredibly stressful, more so than any other sport I coached. But and I also did softball, because I was the first softball coach, and I coached softball right up until the 90s, and Bobby Jones became the head coach after me. He was my assistant coach, one of my assistant coaches, and then he took over softball after I gave it up.